Hi, it's Dr. Steve from Misericordia University, and welcome to Student Creation and Use of Video. In this video, let's consider different types of student videos. Let's generate some ideas for video activities for use with your students. Let's consider how to assess student-created video, and then let's finish by taking a survey of the educational activities involved for this week's class. Thus far in our course, we found that video can positively impact the classroom. We found that video can stimulate stronger performance by our students in class, that it positively impacts our student motivation, their confidence with the content, and also their attitudes toward the content. We discovered that shorter videos are better than longer videos because they can increase the viewing time by the students, and they can also improve their learning from the video. We found that the instructor appearing in the video is more engaging to students, and then it also helps them engage more with the content. We also discovered that the use of graphics in video increases student attention, student interest, their engagement level, and it also helps improve their memory of details of the content that we're presenting in the video. In the course, we began by considering the effectiveness of using video as a teacher in the classroom. And then we looked at how teachers can present video resources start by tapping into those that already exist. And then we spent 2 weeks looking at how teachers can create their own video resources. Now we're ready to take a look at student creation and also student use of video in the classroom. One researcher suggests that there are 4 different types of student-created videos. There are learning product videos. Those are normally summative assignments in which students demonstrate something that they have learned. There are response videos, and these are short videos. They're responses to a prompt or a question and can be used like an exit ticket. There are reflection videos, and this is a reflection about what was learned and or the learning process and methods to provide insights to the instructor. There are also tutorial videos, and these are videos in which a student will explain or demonstrate how to perform or do something. And all of our students are familiar with watching these types of videos already on YouTube, and they're typically eager to try their own video like this. Earlier in our course, we considered Edgar Dale's cone of learning, and we found that students typically remember just a little bit of what they read, hear, or see, but if we combine hearing and seeing, they recall 50% of that content. If they talk about it, 70%, and if they say and do something, about 90% is retained. Considering this, let's look at some possible assignments and activities where students can reflect on their learning. They could do a brief video recap of what was learned in today's lesson. Now, as a teacher, set the parameters. You could say it's a minute long or no more than 30 seconds in length. As a teacher, you don't necessarily have to have students do multiple problems or activities or responses as a homework assignment. Consider that you can have them do a deep dive. And by that I mean, instead of assigning 10 problems, let's say, of something, it's the same thing repeated 10 times, maybe have students perform 1 or 2 of them and deep dive it. Have them thoroughly explain through video and through demonstration on video. And again, in this case, they're saying, they're doing, they're doing a little bit of all of these important elements that research suggests will help students really demonstrate well and also retain those elements of content. In the classroom, teachers can utilize video in a number of creative ways to interact with students and to support student learning and student experience. For example, teachers could create video stations in which students will move through 3 or 4 stations throughout the classroom, and each one will utilize video as the means of delivery of the content. A teacher can use video to provide feedback on student work, and this is very handy and very effective if students are doing some type of written work, term papers, essays, something art related, where a teacher can provide some good feedback and differentiate information for individual students. When you're testing, a teacher could provide an option for students if they wanted to hear the test instructions and see the teacher describe it and even read the questions to the students. So think about it. That could be on demand and available to all students and not just students with IEPs or 504s. You could teach your classroom routines in the beginning of the academic year via video. If you wanted to build student narration skills, you could provide existing video or ask students to locate an existing video, mute down the soundtrack, and then they create their own narration, their own soundtrack in their own voice. As we learned with the learning pyramid, when students teach others or practice by doing, they learn the content much better. Considering this, you could create activities where students teach concepts through video. So you could have any kind of activity where students are given an assignment to explain or illustrate or demonstrate a concept. You could have a newscast format of a video in which students explain what was learned that day as if it was a news item. You could also set up a video jigsaw activity where small groups of students each move to a station where video is the delivery medium of the content, and they will learn that content, and then they will proceed to teach the other groups that content. You could ask your students to create video that will explore a topic. For example, you could ask students to interview someone on that particular topic and bring another voice into the classroom. You could ask students to create a video that will provide a virtual tour. Well, they could do this in a number of ways. They could take their phone and they could record on location. They could use a green screen and be anywhere and interact with the content. They could use Google Earth or Google Maps Street View in order to, again, possibly with a green screen to make it even more interesting and immerse themselves in that content. And they could do the tour from there. They could also create an advertising or marketing video to sell the audience or persuade that audience on some topic. Instead of holding traditional student in-person presentations, you could ask students to create a video presentation in which they recreate an historic speech. And consider if you used a green screen with this, the student could actually be placed in that historic location of that speech. They could describe and demonstrate results of a project that they have worked on. They could write and record a short story, poetry, some literary piece, and they could also use graphics and or green screen to illustrate it and tell that story. They could also create a skit or a conversation in another language if they were in a Spanish or French or other foreign language class. Let's consider for a moment, if you're going to institute some video activities and assignments with your students, how are you going to assess their work? What kinds of elements could you include in a rubric? Here are several thoughts. Content. Clearly state what information and how much of it students should include in the video. So for example, maybe 4 facts about George Washington. The length of the video. Set a limit on video length. Now keep in mind that videos can be as short as maybe 30 seconds or up to about 6 minutes or so. Keep it short if you're planning to share those videos with the class in some type of activity. Also consider how much time will it take for you to view those and assess those videos. Images could be a good item to include. State how many images that the student should include. Add possibly that images should be relevant to the topic, depending on the age of your learners. If you're working with older learners, you could require the use of public domain images or the inclusion of image source citations. And again, if you're working with older students, consider sources. Maybe you can require a text slide that's going to contain a bibliography, or ask them to provide a written bibliography to accompany the video. Let's take a look at Rubistar at forteachers.org. I'm going to click into Multimedia, and let me click into a multimedia project. Of course, to use this tool, I would fill out a little more information here so I could save it and then could print it and so on. Let me take a look at what types of categories they're suggesting. So they're looking at, for example, presentation and different aspects of whether it's rehearsed or well rehearsed, and how smooth it is and how the audience can react to it. They're also looking at items such as sources that we mentioned, permissions, the attractiveness, if a teacher wants to use a rough draft, requirements, mechanics, the content itself. Let's take a look at content for a moment. The in-depth aspect of it, or is it minimal, and how well is it researched? The oral presentation, the originality, and the workload. If you're looking for more apps and more web tools to be able to work with video with your students, I'm going to suggest going out to commonsense.org and looking at their reviews of different apps. Here we're seeing the best interactive apps of the year, and you'll notice some things that we've already looked at, like Play Pose It and Edpuzzle, and there are a whole bunch of other really interesting and powerful tools. Here's the ability to create animated elements for video, Toontastic, Screencast-O-Matic we've looked at, a number of other tools in here. Shadow Puppet is an interesting thought as a way to get younger students involved in video. There's Do Ink, Stop Motion could be an interesting thing, and various editors like iMovie. So some very interesting tools if you're looking to have access to more tools to try out with your particular group of learners. A great way to get young students involved in creating video would be through a puppet show. Here we're looking at the screen of Puppet Pals, which is designed for iOS. So I'm going to start by looking at the characters, and notice they have it set so only adults can get into this area, because we start off with some free sets and characters, but then we can also purchase more. So you can see we can be anywhere from the West to talk shows to pirates to aviation, even out into outer space. Let me click to start, and you'll notice that here's my aviation, my fairy tale, the ones that I've selected right now, and space, and even Thanksgiving. I'm going to start with the fairy tale, and I'm going to select some of these characters. I'm going to choose these, and if I wanted to, I could even include pictures of my students in. We can add an actor from a photo. So I'm going to include myself in here as well. Then I get to choose different backgrounds, different backdrops. I'm going to select the 3 that come with the fairy tale. And now I'm looking at some other characters here. I'm going to move some of them off stage.
There's two of my aviation people. I'll move them off stage. I've got 3 different backdrops that are available. So you can see it's very easy. I just pull the curtain and I'm able to change the backdrop. And in the lower left-hand corner, I can see the entire screen. This will be the actual video size. If I zoom out, I'm seeing the green room, as it were, or off stage in the wings. So I've got all these different characters around. I can take and pinch and change the size and the orientation of these different characters. And I can move them on and off screen and so on. And when I'm ready to record, all I have to do is click the red record button on top. And while it's recording, it will be recording voice of either one or a small group of students, several students. And then you can move, they can move the characters around and have them interact. And they can change the backdrop while it's recording. And press the record button again in order to stop. And if I want, I could even make a cameo appearance in the video as well. What a great way to get your young students started off with video.
Let's wrap up by considering the educational activities for week number 5. This week we will have 3 activities, the first of which will be a discussion. Let's brainstorm about student activities with video. I provided several articles and websites of interest to provide some reference and also some inspiration. Let's brainstorm what we could either do in class or as take-home activities, things that we could do with our students that involve video. Activity 2 will involve creating 2 student assignments, and let's do a peer review. So start by creating 2 assignments that involve video. Now that could be in any form, creating video on some particular platform, creating screen recordings, using a green screen, using interactive platforms like Padlet, anything that involves video in some form. Describe the topic, the instructions for the students, and any parameters of the assignments, like how long it should be, or how many graphics should be used, and things of that nature, those parameters. On the discussion board, type or upload the descriptions of the 2 assignments that you will create for your students. And then through the lens of peer review, let's comment on the assignments created by at least 2 other people in our class. That'll allow us to fine-tune and brainstorm just a little further and expand on ideas for those assignments that you create. Our third activity will be hands-on and a debriefing online. Let's create a green screen activity to use with our students. Now we know that many students will really engage with the content when they create video using a green screen. So for this activity, describe a green screen activity that you will use with your students. And to give you a little more experience using the green screen, record a brief demo project that models what this project will look like when it's completed, so that you can share that with your students. When finished, on our discussion board, post a description of the activity and a link to your video on your YouTube channel. And then let's debrief by just briefly describing some insights that you gained, or talk about your experience doing this activity. I hope you enjoyed this video as we considered how we could create assignments that involve video with our students. I look forward to seeing your brainstorming and all of our ideas about how to use video further with our students, and also I can't wait to see what you do with the green screen. Have a great week, and see you online.